everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about The Rules of Falling for You by Mollie Rushmeyer. So, this one is a contemporary romance and it's a rom-com, and it fits within the Christian fiction category and it's a standalone story. So, why did I want to read this one? Well, I've enjoyed reading Mollie's books in the past, including The Lost Manuscript and The Bookshop of Secrets. And you can find my recommendations for those books at my blog, at my website, at narelleatkins.com, and there'll be a link in the show notes. And so when I saw this one go on pre-order, I had to pre-order the paperback, and it sat there waiting a couple of weeks for me to have a chance to read it, and it was definitely worth the wait. So let's talk about the book. The Rules of Falling for You by Mollie Rushmeyer is set in Minnesota. So we're in the Twin Cities area in Minneapolis. And we have quite a few romance and rom-com tropes in this one. So it has the best friend's brother trope. We also have friends to more and unrequited love because these two have been friends for years since they were at school. We also have forced proximity because they end up working together. And this story is inspired by Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. So we have a lot of Regency era things happening in the story, which is really fun. And we also have the turning 30 and not being married trope. And it's really a modern twist on the Regency spinster character, and it definitely is a twist, and I'll touch on that a bit later because I don't want you to look at this and think it's a I'm desperate to get married and I'm 30 and I'm not married and think that's the trope, because it's actually not the trope, it's a twist on that. But anyway, we'll get to that a bit later. Let's start by talking about the first line of the book, which is this one. I refuse to have a Pride and Prejudice pity party again. So we meet Zoe, who's our main character. So she's 29 years old. She's turning 30 soon. And she's a podcaster. And so she basically has this little podcast that's taken off and is getting very popular. And it's called Love According to Miss Gladwin. And we actually have a fictional Regency author and Regency books that are mentioned in the series, which is really fun how that's actually mentioned in the show. Yeah, so she's a podcaster and she gives dating advice, except for the fact that her real life dating is a disaster and she's yet to find her husband. Hence why she's heading for 30 and feels like she's a bit of a fraud with the job that she does. So at the start of the story, in chapter 1, we have Zoe in a restaurant in Minneapolis, and she's on another very bad first date. And not just a little bit bad, this one's very bad. And it ends in disaster, which is laugh out loud hilarious for the reader. And I was laughing out loud in this opening chapter, but it's not so fun for her because it's yet again another mortifying situation. And so I'll introduce you to Harrison next. So he's our hero, and he's 32 years old, and his younger sister is Zoe's best friend. So his younger sister, her name is Eden. And Harrison is an audiovisual engineer, and he's worked as a TV producer, and he's currently between jobs. He's come back from Cincinnati, where he was for 18 months, and then things went wrong there. He had his ex-girlfriend, he got burned by her, and he lost his job, so now he's back in town. So he ends up becoming the producer of Zoe's podcast and ends up working with Zoe and her sister on that. So we have a meet cute because they kind of haven't been talking for 18 months because something really embarrassing happened just before he moved. And the meet cute, when they unexpectedly see each other, it is awkward, ridiculous, embarrassing, and it's laugh out loud hilarious. It ticks all the boxes that you want in a meet cute. And so this story, we have so many problems. We have what happened 18 months ago, which is effectively Harrison seeing Zoe in a very embarrassing situation, and Zoe hasn't quite gotten over that and has been awkward around him and has avoided him. So we've got stuff that relates to that. We have their shared history since they were friends when they were younger. We also have unrequited love. So, from Harrison's perspective, he's had feelings for her for a long time, and the moment just hasn't worked out. And that's about all I'll say because the story will go into a bit more detail on what's happened in the past. Whereas we have Zoe, who is an absolute romantic at heart, looking for her Mr. Darcy, who hasn't really acknowledged that whatever feelings that have run between her and Harrison at different times might actually mean something. So she's in a bit of denial about her unrequited love. So, anyway, they both have a lot of past emotional baggage. Harrison's parents, he has a very difficult relationship with them, although he's very close to his sister Eden. And Zoe's mum has an illness that's long term that requires a lot of attention from her father. So she's really had to raise herself and she's learned not to be a burden on her parents. And that's one of the reasons that she wants to get married because they've been blissfully married for years and years. And she wants what her parents have. And she knows that her parents will stop worrying about her if she gets married. So a lot of her motivation to get married ties into her childhood and family of origin. And at the same time, as much as she wants to meet the right person, she also fears rejection because of a whole lot of stuff that's happened as well. So she's quite a complicated character. And we also have issues that crop up because they've had this awkwardness from the beginning of the story, but they're now working together because Harrison's going to be temporarily producing the podcast that Zoe works on with her best friend Eden, who is his sister. And Harrison's career, he really wants to get in a TV producer gig. So the podcast is a bit of a stepping stone as he goes up the career ladder as well. And he's hoping that will lead to some further opportunities. So I absolutely love this story. It's a rom-com, so it's laugh out loud funny. And there were lots of times that I actually was laughing out loud. It's also a fun modern day twist on the Pride and Prejudice story. And it's not a retelling. And I'll get to that a bit later because that's quite important as to why I love the story. And I loved how there was a podcast in the story where we have the Regency dating and all of that stuff going on. And we also have our leading lady. She has a 30 by 30 list. So Zoe has this Regency list that she found in this old book that actually was written by a fictional author in the Regency era in their journal. And so she's got all these things to tick off, 30 things by 30 that she's doing as well. And she ends up signing up with Eden to go to an immersive Regency singles retreat. And they're doing that for a week. And of course, Harrison tags along because he does camera work and filming, and he's also the producer of the show. And that puts them together where they pretty much can't avoid each other. And it's such a charming friends to more with the unrequited love story. And I just loved how the romance played out. And Eden, it's Harrison's sister, she was funny and quirky, as were all the side characters. They just added so much humor and just a lot of lightness to the story. And I just really enjoyed how all those characters played an important role in the story. And we also have Zoe with type 1 diabetes, which is actually important for the story as well. And I really loved how Mollie handled that with such sensitivity, where we really got to see how Zoe's diabetes does actually impact her life, but in a way that was presented positively. And I just really appreciated how that was educational as well as being an important part of the story. And the ending, I just loved how this story wrapped up. I wasn't quite sure where it was going at certain points, but the way it ended was just delightful. And I would describe this one as having relevant faith elements. We have trust and forgiveness themes that get addressed in the story. We also, obviously, being a Pride and Prejudice inspired story, we have pride issues and prejudices that need to get looked at as well. And the faith elements, we really look at trusting God and trusting that God's love is unconditional. So God's not about rules and checklists and meeting up to his standards. It's about grace. And also that God's love is enough and it's okay to be single. And you don't have to be married to be happy, and you don't have to be married to meet God's approval. And so this story really ticks all my boxes as an inspired story from Pride and Prejudice. And I'm a bit I'm a bit fussy when it comes to modern retellings because if it's a historical context, so 20th century or earlier, I'm absolutely fine. But I don't think Pride and Prejudice translates really well as a modern day retelling without quite a bit of tweaking. And it's really because, I mean, unlike the 1800s, women can be happily single in the 21st century. You don't need a man to survive. You can have a job, you can live a satisfying life. You don't have to rely on your father, your brother, your husband, your distant cousin, because you can inherit money, you can own property. So, for all those reasons, it can be a hard sell for me to like a modern day retelling of Pride and Prejudice. And also with the misunderstandings that go with that book. And I know Pride and Prejudice quite well. I first read it in the 20th century when I was at high school. We had to study it for high school English, and it saved my English mark. But those really cute and adorable misunderstandings that work so well in a historical context, particularly the Regency era, where you've got society rules that keep people apart. So you can't just duck down the road and knock on someone's door and have a conversation. All of those things are a whole lot of the charm of the Regency era, I think, is in all those miscommunications and all the things that go with that. Whereas we live in the 21st century with 24/7 access to phones. We can call someone and have a video conversation anytime we want, pretty much on the other side of the world, as long as they're online. So all of those miscommunications that are really charming and cute in the Regency era just don't translate as well for 21st century. And I'm very happy to tell you there are no cute misunderstandings in this story. So that was definitely a big tick from me. The way the story was structured and the way the conflict played out between the characters was really well done, and I really enjoyed reading it. So, my favorite book quote in the story is this one: Outward manners have little to do with the inward heart and who people are on the inside. So, this is Harrison talking to Zoe. And the context of this is Harrison's looked at his parents and their superficial marriage and their superficial friends who really aren't their friends and who are beautifully mannered and impeccably behaved in public and to your face, but behind your back, they're toxic, awful people. And he really is very skeptical of the whole Regency cosplay thing on the grounds that it's fake and it's not real. So there's a little bit of conflict between him and Zoe because he has a very different perspective on the Regency etiquette and what all that means to what she does. And Zoe, she has this obsession with the Regency era and with the way everything worked to find a husband with the marriage mart and all the different rules and etiquette. And she's convinced that she can find her perfect gentleman and that he's out there somewhere. She just has to keep looking. And she sees this retreat as an opportunity to find him. But one thing she will learn, and this is no spoiler because if you've read Pride and Prejudice, you know this, is that no one's perfect. There is no perfect gentleman. And of course, her real life Mr. Darcy, who she's looking for, is right under her nose, but she doesn't recognize him in the same way that Elizabeth Bennet had Mr. Darcy under her nose, and she didn't quite work out that he was the right man for her because of her prejudices and pride and all of those things. So I really loved how those Pride and Prejudice elements played out in the story. It was very well done. And so the impact on me, this story was laugh out loud funny. And at the same time, there were some very serious and poignant moments. And I really appreciated how the characters had a lot of emotional baggage to unpack and how some of those more serious issues were dealt with in a really sensitive and beautiful way as well. And so, in summary, I would recommend this book to readers who like rom coms with a Regency twist, who like Jane Austen inspired romances, and for readers who like the brother's best friend trope with friends to more and unrequited love. And if you like the forced proximity with working together in a podcasting, filming type environment, you'll like this. If you like funny and quirky side characters, then you'll definitely enjoy this one. And if you like your story with relevant faith elements that have trust and forgiveness themes, then you'll definitely enjoy this one. Thanks for joining me today. Does The Rules of Falling for You sound like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? What did you think? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching at YouTube, you can like the episode at YouTube and also leave a comment. You can also email me at my website where I have a contact form, and that's at narelleatkins.com. And also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or subscribe at YouTube, and then you'll get a notification on when my next episode drops so you won't miss any. And also, if you have enjoyed this episode, please share the link with a friend, especially a friend who likes reading rom-coms that have a bit of a Regency romance twist to them and a Jane Austen flavour, and also to a friend who would like reading Mollie Rushmeyer's books. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.